And welcome everybody to the Daily Space Weather. Today we're talking about the geomagnetic storm that's currently ongoing. As forecasted, talking a little more about cosmology. Covidiots in masks, the VMAs, and Lady Gaga. First thing we're going to do is look at the sun. Massive coronal hole there in the northern hemisphere. And you can see some filamentary collapse happening there in the 48-hour SDO video. And there's a bunch of coronal ejecta striking the magnetosphere right now. This one is, I believe, a coronal hole wind stream. We'll analyze it momentarily. By the way, I'm your host Dan, aka smAsho. I've put up a 1-week video here of the 304 angstroms SOHO movie, just to show you there was a bunch of filamentary activity happening, and this actually includes a couple of coronal mass ejections. Not really too visible on the SOHO, so let's move on to stereo A. And we're showing you stereo A because we've got a great view of ejecta. So if you look the entire north area, you can see a halo all around the whole coronagraph, an indication that some solar protons are headed toward stereo A. Don't confuse it with the SOHO. Stereo A is a couple of months behind the Earth in terms of orbit, and so it sees weather a few days ahead of the Earth. Hence it's called stereo A. Let's take a look at a custom 304 angstroms movie here. I'll just make sure that loops. Give that a moment to load there. And you should be able to see a filamentary collapse in this area. So take a look at that. I'll leave that there. And that was actually a coronal mass ejection once again, I believe. And we see plenty of activity going on, including some auroras being sparked. Let me close that down for a minute. Show you the fields as we do most days. No sunspots. There's the current state of the fields. There's the fade to 304 angstroms. Quite a bit of filamentary activity still going on, and that has not ended yet. Here's a custom movie including the LASCO C2 and 304 angstroms, and you can see ejecta coming out all around, and a significant portion of that is still Earth-facing. So we're seeing pretty significant geomagnetic storms here from relatively small coronal mass ejections, as well as coronal hole wind streams coming in at the same time. So lots of geomagnetic unrest, again, as we forecasted. Here's a great view of that filamentary collapse in 171 angstroms, kind of right in the center of the screen there, toward the beginning. Right there you can see probably a partial collapse and a partial ejection without over-analyzing it. The radial flux of the 10.7 centimeter variety is still at 70. So very weak radial flux, yet a lot of activity going on. Here's the 3.5-year chart of the radial flux, and we are ready to see smooth monthly averages here at or above 70 solar flux units. And there's the KP index. You can see it's up to 5 geomagnetic unrest conditions. We don't see any significant X-ray flares, otherwise known as solar flares. We're talking about photons here, as opposed to coronal mass ejections, which are primarily protons. And there's the proton flux, quite flatlined, despite some inputs. By the way, the GOES satellites measure these things, the proton flux, the X-ray flux, the electron flux, at the ionosphere, as close to the F2 layer as they can possibly get. Next, moving on to the real-time solar wind here. Phi angle has recently shifted into a more sun to earth magnetic connection sort of a scenario, an indication that that northern coronal hole is now magnetically connecting, increasing the risk of earthquakes. And we actually saw a large earthquake in the mid-Atlantic, over a 6 magnitude. So this looks like a coronal hole wind stream as we see the solar wind density creeping down from a high around 9.5 protons per cubic centimeter down to 6 protons per cubic centimeter. Solar wind speed has now elevated to over 500 kilometers a second. And we'll be looking at that as that steadies out. Looks like a pretty weak coronal hole wind stream, not a coronal mass ejection on this time. Here's the magnetic environment, a little visualization here, and we like this one, so we're gonna have to keep using this one, as it gives you a great visual representation of closed field force lines there at the northern solar polar region, open field force lines at the south solar polar region. It shows you the B field, and it shows you that coronal hole magnetism there in purple. Pretty good stuff. Hopefully we didn't cause any seizures. Next, looking at the geospace magnetosphere movie, we see significant magnetohydrodynamic pressure. And we see lots of electrons out there too. So there's a lot of stuff going on in the magnetosphere right now. As there's lots of ejecta striking, there's lots of induced magnetism, and there's lots of straight up magnetism not induced by the incoming protons as well. Magnetometers all over the place, as I also forecasted. And there's 4 hours of data. We let that play through a second time there as it refreshed. So that's geomagnetic storm conditions there. Some auroras should be sparked by this. And all eyes on the solar wind speed, as that looks like it's the input that caused these geomagnetic storm conditions. We're also looking at some big magnetic perturbations coming as we're about to snap into the south solar polar current sheet. And some significant auroras coming over over Canada there, as well as southern Greenland and Iceland. Here are the ground magnetic perturbations looking a little closer to home here. And we see significant ones, both over Alaska. Some minor magnetic pulses coming out of the South Pacific, as we typically always see around the equinoxes. And let's look at the polar view here. Gives you a little bit better idea of what the field-aligned currents are doing. Again, this is sort of a double whammy here. This is a magnetic situation as well as an induced magnetism from protons. Anyway, there's 4 hours of data, courtesy University of Michigan. Here's the extremely spiky GOES magnetometer data that I've been forecasting as well. Normally you see a little smoother graphs here. For your new viewers, the N's and M's stand for noon and midnight local time for the satellite, and it's the GOES 16. Again, this gets measured at the ionosphere layer. And let's look at the GONG 2 magnetic data here. The top view ecliptic plane field plot shows us that we will be snapping into the South Pole current sheet. I'm going to guess tomorrow. And there is still quite a bit of plasma out here, as you can see these spiky plumes there in the corona, an indication that you will continue to see spikiness in the GOES magnetometer. And whenever that current sheet polarity crossing happens, you'll see additional spikes from that, as well as magnetic perturbations on Earth. Here's a line of sight field plot, and this active region is finally moving into the Earth-facing zone. And there is still some ejecta that could potentially be coronally mass ejected, if you were wondering. And welcome to another episode of The Smash Lights, where I talk about all kinds of stuff, whether I want to or not. Let's start with some good news. energy firm says its nuclear waste-fueled diamond batteries could last thousands of years. How about a cell phone battery that lasts 9 to 10 years? A pacemaker that's powered to last 28,000 years. It's good stuff. Maybe this is why Bill Gates is trying to build nuclear power plants. Who knows? But the more battery technology advances, the more free energy will become. And this is a good thing. This will help to prevent future catastrophes for mankind. Now, we are streaming live to Twitch, and we do so on the regs. And this is the, oh, look at me. I've got 2 heads. Look, I've got an unlimited number of heads. Thanks to our subs over there at twitch.tv/smAsho. If you want to see the content live, go subscribe over there. We're also on YouTube. Please take a moment to press like and subscribe on YouTube if you enjoy the content. Please inform your friends and your foes and your wholesome girls and hoes and your science noobs and science pros about the channel. We try to put something for everybody, even for dudes like that. Aw, COVID. COVID's been getting shy lately. I'm just going to leave you there. Oh, man. All right, anyway, let's talk COVID. Politics. Paul Krugman, economic illiterate, says April was Trump's cruelest month. Now, I can't stand Paul Krugman because he doesn't have any idea what he's talking about when it comes to economics, or he's lying to you. So whichever that is, I could care less. Paul Krugman is yet another insult to the Nobel Foundation, as he won the Nobel Prize in economics at some point. And I guess he's probably running out of economic subjects to talk about as inflation goes through the roof. People's money gets devalued due to historic amounts of money printing by the Federal Reserve. Now, Paul Krugman is a Keynesian economist who believes that we can just print our way out of any crisis, and the reduction in the purchasing power of all the dollars in the money supply is just fine. If you want to read this article from economic illiterate Paul Krugman, this one is hosted by the Baltimore Sun. April was Trump's cruelest month. Because Paul Krugman is a political hack, if you weren't aware. Let's talk about smashomash.com/forum. Speaking of political hacks, Biden-Harris 2020. If you'd like to get political, I want to get political. I don't really want to get political. But anyway, we've got a forum thread there in the free-for-all forum about Biden-Harris 2020. You can get campaign gear there. Actually, you can get campaign gear at smashomash.org if you want to campaign for Biden and Harris in 2020. Rock the vote, yo. Rock the vote. Make sure you head to the smAsho store, which has all this stuff, by the way, including the smAsho Price My First Pandemic, I've Survived a Global Pandemic So Far, Mansa and Mensa, as well as the Covidiots and Blatant Corruption, Biden-Harris 2020 hoodie. Now that it's getting cool out, consider yours in black or blue, or black and blue if you're black and blue as a result of complete political corruption and total hackery in Washington and at the state and local levels. And by the way, there is hackery going on at massive, massive scales, as Democratic governors and mayors and all kinds of other political hacks that work for corporations are donating massive amounts of money to Black Lives Matter and Antifa and all kinds of other hacky organizations who are trying to create some sort of crazy Marxist, corporatist, two-class system. What a joke. All of these organizations are going to face severe consequences come next year, because they're not going to be able to advance their political agendas. People are rushing out of cities. Everything's turning colors. Good luck getting libertarians and Bernie bros to vote for Biden and Harris. Now, Kamala Harris is probably the most corrupt politician of my entire lifetime, having slept her way into the DA's office and then corruptly prosecuting people who are innocent, doing things like hiding exculpatory evidence and keeping people in jail when they were clearly innocent. So please, by all means, rock the vote and go out and vote Biden-Harris, the complete Covidiocy and blatant corruption ticket 2020. What a joke. If you weren't aware, we're also on BitChute, and the server's been down a couple times. Hopefully it's not DDoS attacks facilitated by organizations like Google. I'm sure Google wasn't complicit in it or anything. BitChute.com/smAshomash. Exclusive content over there. Let's talk about another Covidiot. Lady Gaga came out last night at the VMAs and looked fully moronic. Now, she's got a spectrum analyzer on this Covidiot mask. Let me read one of her quotes. Mask up. Mask up, Covidiots. Now, for some reason, all the people that watch the VMAs. Oh, here's another one of her. This is her couture mask. Wow, well done. Is that screen mesh on the front? I don't think that's going to protect people from your coughs and sneezes. Lady Gaga. Whatever. What a Covidiot. Nice satanic imagery, by the way. She's wearing the mask of Cthulhu in this one. Well done. Oh no, the Illuminati, so spooky. Let's talk about Trump just daring Biden to utter the words Antifa. Why? Why? Let me put out the fire. Why does Trump dare Joe Biden to utter the word Antifa? Why is that, folks? Can anybody answer? Well, let's explain. Antifa, the domestic terrorist organization, apparently is now endorsing Joe Biden. Watch this. Antifa.com. Oh! And now it's gone. As it was redirecting me to JoeBiden.com about 20 minutes ago. Let's try again. Antifa.com. Oh, there you go. Antifa.com simply just redirects you to JoeBiden.com now. So again, vote terrorism as well as blatant corruption and covidiocy. Biden-Harris 2020. And let's talk about a little cosmology real quick. How about Galaxy NGC 2188? We've got a good view of this, as we're viewing this from a similar angle that we view our own Milky Way galaxy from. Edge on. And when you're viewing a galaxy edge on, it looks totally different than when you're viewing it down on the ecliptic plane. And I don't see any jets. I don't know what the article's about. It's basically just sightseeing. It's about half the size of the Milky Way. If you want to read about it, it's on SciTech Daily. We picked up 3 of their articles today. NGC 2188. Let's talk about radioactive iron. Is the sun traveling through a supernoval remnant cloud? The local interstellar cloud? Is that a supernoval remnant? Or is that a solar remnant? Now, we only see one star around the sun. Many people believe it's part of a binary system, as many stars appear to be part of a binary system. Ultimately, we don't know how stars form, if stars die. But it turns out there's iron-60 deep in the oceans at the 33,000 year mark. So something apparently happened 33,000 years ago. And if you want to read about that, the theory is that it's evidence that the sun is traveling through a supernoval remnant, and it's partially because of the lack of understanding of cosmology. We don't see any heavy elements being produced in the cores of stars. However, we do see them being produced in the atmospheres of stars. How come all those giant galactic scale jets contain so much hydrogen and so few heavy elements? How come quote supernoval remnants don't show Markland convection and all kinds of other features that you would see if stars evolved via a nuclear internal dynamo? The nuclear dynamo is in the atmosphere of these objects. If you want to read about this study here about iron-60, it's on SciTech Daily also. How about the TIE Fighter galaxy? Why is it called that? Well, because the radio lobes look like a TIE fighter. A little bit similar to 3C405, the second most massive radio source in the sky. The TIE fighter galaxy looks a bit like one. It's TX-128. And typically when we see these jets in this sort of a formation, they tend to become radio lobes. We've got very powerful gamma ray emitting jets in these regions, and then in the more lower energy portions where the matter begins to condense, we see radio lobes. I won't get into the cosmology of it. We don't want the video to be too long. Another SciTech Daily article. Today's featured star is Deneb, massive X-ray binary, Cygnus X3. It's very bright in the X-ray spectrum. And here are the X-ray transients from it. It looks like it may be coming off its quiescent state once again. It's been teasing us here, and you can see that it goes into significant quiescent states, and then it goes into higher states of activity on a pretty regular basis. Also, it has a 4.8 hour periodicity, as this massive X-ray source actually orbits a massive star about the size of Mars's orbit in only 4.83 hours. So in any case, it is still in a very quiescent state here, somewhere around this range. And I would also note that the strongest transients ever measured from X3 happened in 2009, right there. So I would encourage radio astronomers to watch this object as it's about to come out of its quiescent state, and we would like to see what goes on in radio and other frequencies. Check out our affiliate links, by the way. We've included another one. If you don't like my squeaky mouse wheel, maybe you're in the market for a mouse as well. We've added my new mouse, which I don't have yet, but it's the Lenovo M200 RGB. It probably won't make this noise. And I'll make this mouse my backup or something. So yeah, the Lenovo Legion M200. It's only 20 bucks. It's got thumb buttons, as well as a DPI selector switch. It's a color-changing LED mouse. And it's got a braided cable. And Smash staff endorses it, so I endorse it too. And if you want to see other links about that, our other affiliate stuff, check it out. We've got a whole page dedicated to it. It's smashamash.com/affiliate. smashamash.com/affiliate. Visit our links, purchase stuff that way. Thanks to our subscribe stars, by the way. We are also on Patreon, thanks to our patrons. And we've got the first ever Patreon credit crawl. So again, here are our patrons, and we'll just let that scroll for a moment, sit back, and enjoy the light show. If you've ever wanted your name in lights, please consider becoming a patron, the real source of funding for the content. Thanks to each and every one of you for increasing the probability that these videos will continue to exist and be free and publicly visible, as we consider pulling the content on the regs, because we are pretty much tanking over here. So again, thanks to our patrons. And thanks for giving us reason to create the first Patreon credit crawl. Here ends today's Smash Light segment. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. And let's get on to more space-type stuff. Electron flux is quite high, and we've reached electron storm levels once again. There you can see yesterday, around 1600 hours, we were in a significant electron storm there, possibly causing things like satellite drag. I didn't bring up any of those charts. And now we've tanked. So we got a big pulse of electrons, and then a big reduction in electrons. Here is the visualization of that scenario. Let me just make sure the stream is good. By the way, here's our first Patreon credit crawl on the Daily Space Weather. Just in case you only watch the Smash Light segment, we've put it in both locations. And we see over forecasted levels of electrons here as we've dropped well below this forecast. Here's 24 hours of the ionosphere. We've switched this up. Previously we only showed 6 hours of the ionosphere. Now we've switched to a 24-hour, 1 hour per second view, which will show you a full rotation of the Earth. Ionosphere looking pretty normal right now. And it's always a little wobbly there over the South Atlantic anomaly, which is right around here. And let's bring up the latest image and move on. Fairly normal there, a little bit charged up on the nighttime side. During a geomagnetic storm, here's where stuff is in the solar system. There's where things will be in a week. I like to use in-the-sky for my star charts. Perhaps check that out. If you're wondering where Deneb is, it's the tail of the swan. Cygnus X3, high mass X-ray binary. So we did see a 6.5 magnitude quake in the central mid-Atlantic ridge. Here's the location of that significant quake. Way out in the middle of the Atlantic. Let's move on to the last 24 of earthquakes. Again, that was the largest. Here's a deep one in Afghanistan, heads up for the Middle East, as we've seen quite a few deep quakes in Afghanistan. And after this geomagnetic storm subsides, earthquake risk will rise. So the next 24 hours actually is going to be an increased earthquake risk. Here's a very deep quake in Indonesia. It's a 4.6 magnitude at 658 kilometers. And let's just scroll up the list here. That 6.5 occurred at 21:20 Universal Time, 20 after 9 Universal Time. And here just a little while ago, while I was doing show prep, a 4.5 at the Mariana Islands at 309 kilometers. Volcano Discovery is telling us a Bico's erupting. Flight level 100, 10,000 foot ash plume there. Sakurajima flight level 060, 6,000 foot ash plume there. Cinnabung back on the list, the deadliest earthquake, the deadliest volcano of the past couple of years. Cinnabung now erupting again, producing a 12,000 foot ash plume. Dacono is exploding, 7,000 foot ash plume there. Popocatépetl likewise exploding. Fuego exploding, Sangay exploding, and Sabancaya exploding. 19,000, 15,000, 21,000, and 27,000 foot ash plumes respectively. Please do not pole vault any of those caldera. It could make for a bad day. We still see lots of power outages going on here in Louisiana, and we hope that gets back online as soon as possible. Massive number, over 300,000. 57,000 shown out in Texas, and over 12,000 out in California. Keep in mind they don't track all of the custies there. Check out some funnel clouds from Stillwater, New York, where a possible tornado struck. Pretty scary with air raid sirens in the background. Let's mute that so we don't get any copyright strikes. Well done, Brian T. Neary. Some sketchy looking clouds and rotational funnel type activity going on there, enough to set off their tornado warning. There we go. That story's at AccuWeather.com's news section. Here's a weather.gov map for the U.S. Still some flooding forecasted in West Virginia and Virginia, as well as now heat advisories in the south. Here's a pressure map. Let's let this advance into tomorrow. We'll pause it at about noontime tomorrow via the GFS forecast. And you see that powerful low moving across Alaska. I would be on the lookout for earthquakes over the next 24 to 36 hours, folks. Especially if I lived in an earthquake-prone zone. Let's check the lightning maps at lightningmaps.org. We see quite a bit of lightning in the U.S. right now. It looks most intense just south of Minneapolis. If you're in Minneapolis in a skyscraper, look to your south. You may see quite a light show. Set up a tripod and aim above the thunderstorm. You could find sprites. And hey, Owatonna, there's thunder rolling in. And yes, lightningmaps.org will forecast thunder. Shout out to our international viewers. Here's the water vapor map for Africa and Europe. Please leave us a comment if you're viewing from someplace noted on this map. It also shows you some of the Caribbean and South America, by the way. Here is the water vapor map for the Far East and Oceania. Shout out to our viewers from there. Leave us a comment if you're located in these spots on Earth. Water vapor map for the Americas. And the Don Lemon anticyclone still has more credibility than Don Lemon. How about Doppler radar map for the US? There you have that. And the water vapor map for the US, which is good to show right after the Doppler. And we'll zoom in on Minnesota since it's the point of, I guess you'll say, least resistance. Anyway, there's what's going on with that. It looks like it's going to move through pretty quickly here, and that's a good thing. Here's nullschool.net's flight level 250, 25,000 foot altitude winds. And there's some oddities over there in the east. You can see major kinks, jet streams moving the wrong way, jet streams moving south to north and north to south. Here are the western world's jet streams. Once again, all over the place. And there's that Don Lemon anticyclone. Please leave a comment if you're anti-Don Lemon. Hey, Smash Team. Thanks for tuning in. Please don't forget to share the content on your social media. Tell your friends and your foes and your wholesome women and hoes and your science noobs and science pros about us. Thanks for flying American Smash Waves. We've got bonus segments, so please keep your head and arms inside the Smash plane at all times. We're going to show you the 94 angstroms 48-hour SDO video. We're going to show you the intensitygram to show you 0 sunspots and the colorized magnetogram. Could it be a sunspot forming on the back end of that plage? Here's a close-up. Does not look like it. Here's the intensitygram. I don't see any dark ombre. What say you? Here's the 94 angstroms view. It's time to get out of here, as there's lots more stuff to do today. Thanks for tuning in. Remember, stare at the sun, don't drink, and if you do, don't drive. If you have a stalker, call the police and inform them that you're being stalked. And since it'll never be now again, may that solar wind be at your back and those Covidiots absent from your locale.